Hello, this is Chris Arnone, second-year Master of Fine Arts candidate at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I'm also the secretary of the Nu Theta chapter of Sigma Tau Delta, the English Honor Society. And I'm back for my fourth and final quarantine reads, this time with The Wicked and the Divine, Deluxe Volume 4, right? So this collects issues 34 through 45, the historical specials, the Christmas annual, the funnies, plus bonus material. As you can see, it is 2 volumes, actually. There's a second one over there. I know they're kind of black on black, maybe a little hard to see. Again, this is a comic book, therefore it is a collaborative effort. Writer is Kieran Gillen, artist Jamie McKelvey, the colorist is Matthew Wilson, and the letterer was Clayton Cowles. First off, this thing is huge, all right? There's 2 of them, all right? You see that? And this one, it's bigger than the other 3 were, each individually. This is absolutely massive. I have a feeling there wasn't enough for a 5th volume, but it was an extra plush, thick boy of a 4th volume. I hope I'm using that right. I'm probably a little too old to be using that term, but there you have it. It's massive. So the big one, this one, right? That has the main story, sort of the final act. So it's a little bigger than the others were. It's straight to the end, leaving off where we ended in volume 3. And then the small one, this one here, right? It's much smaller. That has the Christmas special, which are like these little scenes that didn't quite make the cut for the main volume. As a writer, there's a lot that winds up on the proverbial cutting room floor. And in this case, for Kieran, it was a lot of things that he had written that just didn't really need to be in the main issues, but there were some still nice moments between certain characters we never got to see interact, some sort of little bits of origin or history and whatnot, and so they got to play out in each, 2, 3, 4 page little snippets, all in one issue. And then the funnies, which is the other one that's in that small volume, they basically got a bunch of their friends together, writers, artists, to riff on and have fun with the wicked and the divine. Like the first story was all of the gods, the whole pantheon, were dogs. Except, of course, for Sekhmet, who is still a cat. And Ananke is basically trying to, get them all in a bag and take them to a dog park. Except, of course, she's still Ananke. She's still... Yeah, let's just leave it there to get without spoilers. It's funny. It's having a good time. It's being a little goofy. And, this series can be pretty heavy sometimes, which I like. But it's nice when they can have a little fun, too. So, as I said, this is the final act. So, I can't really talk about anything as far as the story goes without getting into some spoilers. If you're not planning to read it, sad for you, it's a really great read, but you can always go back and watch my other videos to catch up, or, just go read it all, and then, you can watch this and discuss in the comments, or find me on Twitter or whatever. But yeah, and then again, there are also some great bonus materials here. As always, there's a beautiful cover gallery. There's a neat making of featurette that has a lot of cool stuff going on in it. There's some concept art. There are some, script versus final page comparisons, some making of art things with layers, and I think they're called flats. I'm not really a visual artist. And then once again, we have detailed writer's notes. So this is not the actual script, but more of a post-mortem from Kieran Gillen, writing out all these notes and details about almost every page of every single issue that takes place in these massive volumes. It's really cool. Now, as far as themes go, again, we're in the 4th and final volume, so I can't discuss a lot without getting spoilery, so that'll come later, and I'll just skip straight to the review. So here it is, the end in which everything is finally fully explained. It did feel like a satisfying ending. To be clear, I'm not one of these people who tracks down a lot of plot holes, but there were none that jumped out to me that were glaring. The motivations were clear for all the characters by the time we get there, which I feel like that's what you have to do to earn your ending. Maybe the logistics were a touch convoluted. That's okay, though. The Christmas special, the funnies, they were a lot of fun. They were nice, especially you finish sort of the big emotional of the main story. So then to go and read those little snippets and the little goofy funnies, it was nice. It was a nice breath of fresh air after the emotional weight of the story. I have to say, a bit disappointed in the final battle. And part of it, as a writer, I understand the real climax of The Wicked and the Divine was an emotional one. It was about character, really, not physical violence. And yet there was a big battle at the end, or near the end, and it was put into one single panel that took up one entire page, and that was it. And I get it. Like I said, this was more about characters than fighting. But at the same time, it's a comic book. I grew up on comic books, reading X-Men and Batman and Superman and all, you know, where you get like crazy clashes of powers and twists and turns in a battle. And I didn't get that. And I wanted that. Maybe they weren't allowed to put in just one more issue, or I don't know what it was, but I was a little disappointed that that's all we really got from the big climactic battle. So now it's time. Spoilers are ahead, okay? I want you to be ready. Now is the time to stop and go watch something else, or go read these, go watch my previous ones, or if you're down with spoilers, or you've already read it, then here we go. In 3, 2, the final act, okay, right? It's, wow. So there was a bit of like a hint of a stranger in a strange land thing. If nobody's read that, there's this idea of thou art God. And really, in that book, it is playing with the idea that if God is truly omniscient and omnipotent, then all of us are parts and pieces of God, because all existence is part of God, and therefore we are all part of God. And if God is infinite, then we all contain infinity, and it's, you know, math plus religion. It's kind of blah. But there's a bit of that in here with that everyone is actually a god. They just had to figure it out. And Arnone has basically been accelerating the process, cheating the system in order to gain her immortality, which was a pretty cool, kind of wild twist, and really philosophical and deep and cool and fun. And we do finally get to figure out exactly who Arnone is / was. And the whole Minerva Arnone thing finally gets explained in a way that does make sense-ish. It's a bit of like Doctor Who, where, you know, you can call Doctor Who science fiction, but really it's fantasy, and he's a sage archetype because the science is never explained. In the same way that the magic here is never really explained in depth. You kind of get a sense of it with like the stories and the magic behind the stories, but as far as like exactly how Arnone got her powers and all that, that's a little vague. But that's okay, really. I feel like you can go along with something even if you don't understand all the logistics behind it, because really the logistics aren't necessarily the point. And then it does end with this flash forward 40 years, which is a nice way of giving some closure. A bit heavy-handed, a bit overly sentimental, but I imagine after 4+ years, however long it really took Gillen and company to create these, you know, I could see them feeling a little sad to see it go and to say goodbye to it and to really make sure they were driving home their point. You know, that little fourth wall break at the end that was like, and here's the moral of the story. It was a little like, okay, we got it. I mean, I got it a while ago. I don't really... But anyway, that's how they went. But I thought it was really cool that it came down to sort of everything was a matter of belief. Like how they truly beat Arnone was just choosing to not be gods and understanding that that's not who they were. Which brings us to our themes, right? What is good? What is evil? That's been running through this whole thing. In this case, you know, Arnone, good or evil, really she was just selfish. And what made her evil is she was willing to take advantage of other people just to live forever. Baal was tricked into doing these really horrible things, but wound up being the self-sacrificial hero, the martyr at the end. Baphomet, who, you know, was the maybe the killer and then the abused, and you know, this underworld god winds up sacrificing himself to make sure the right god is there for that final battle. And of course, Lucifer. You know, they get their bodies back, and near the end, Lucifer leans into her being Lucifer, right? She wants to remain that, realizing like, this is me, baby. This is what I do. I am the morning star. I am sin. Why not? Why not just own it? And it takes Laura reminding her that, yeah, but you're also a person. You're also Eleanor Rigby, my friend, before you became Satan. And that's really cool. So I think part of that is good and evil, they're choices. They're not about how you're born, who your parents were. They're not about what godhead is supposedly attached to you or what came before it. It is about choice. You can choose to be good, you can choose to be evil, and your actions decide that. And that's the wicked and the divine. Really cool. So again, in closing, support your local bookstore. Support your local comic book stores. I bought this, Volume 4, from Wise Blood Booksellers here in Kansas City. Your comic book stores are struggling, your local bookstores are struggling, but a lot of them are finding really cool, creative ways to like ship books to you, do curbside pickup, bring them to you, find any way they can to do that. A lot of them are having like GoFundMes right now to help them out. Local store Rainy Day Books has a GoFundMe right now to help them stay afloat. I was just in a Zoom meeting with a little like donation for another bookstore in Philadelphia. So yeah, there's lots of really cool things going out there. And also a lot of comic book creators are auctioning off items like scripts, art, lessons, all sorts of cool stuff via Twitter using the hashtag creators4, as in the number, comics. So search for that on Twitter. You can find all kinds of awesome things that are being auctioned off that these creators are selling things to help comic book stores stay afloat through this COVID-19 pandemic. So that's it. Volume 4, the end of The Wicked and the Divine. Thank you so much. Find us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, right here on YouTube. Subscribe. There are some other great members who are making great video content. Stay safe, and we'll see you when this is all over. Thanks.